The exclusion of black farmers from federal assistance. For decades, black farmers in the United States have faced systemic discrimination in accessing federal aid. Despite their contributions to American agriculture, black farmers were routinely denied low-interest loans, grants, and subsidies from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA. These programs were essential in helping farmers expand their land, purchase equipment, and survive economic downturns. But many black farmers were locked out due to racist policies and local USDA officials who favored white farmers. During the 20th century, black farmers lost millions of acres of land, often due to foreclosure or lack of financial support. Many who applied for USDA loans faced delayed processing, unfair denials, or excessive bureaucratic barriers. The 1999 class action lawsuit Pigford v. Glickman exposed these discriminatory practices, leading to a settlement meant to compensate affected farmers. However, many still struggled to receive meaningful assistance. Although reforms have been introduced, black farmers continue to fight for fair access to federal resources. The lasting effects of past discrimination have contributed to the drastic decline of black-owned farms, highlighting the ongoing struggle for justice and equity in the agricultural industry.
Oh my God! Most of these farms are century farms. They've been in y'all's family for over 100 years. And now they come in, want to disrupt y'all with a road, cutting y'all from the road. They telling us about economic growth for everybody. It's not going to be economic growth for everybody because they fencing us all from the road.
Yes.
They're not going to give us access to that highway to make money.
Yep.
They're going to sit right there and raise taxes on us until they can sweat us out this land that we still own.
That's right.
And then after they get it out of our hands, then they'll develop it.
Yeah.
But just hold on.
Hold on.
Don't give in. Fight on.
Yeah.
You know, we David. You know, he slowed Goliath.
Yes.
So we a little bunch. But we can make a lot of noise.
Oh, yes.
And do not let them divide us.
That's
If they
right.
divide us, they gonna conquer us. So just hold steadfast and hold on.
Hold on.
And just keep pushing. And don't let them just push us. Now back to this.
Black farmers have finally gotten their just due here in America. In a lawsuit against the USDA Farm Loan Program, more than $2 billion was paid out to black and other POC farmers when applying to the program. Now, this is all a result of the funding from the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 signed by the Biden administration. This problem goes all the way back to 1965 and has affected over 65,000 individuals nationwide. This is a historic win for farmers of color despite decades of discrimination at the hands of the USDA. Over 23,000 farmers are set to receive between $10,000 and $500,000 per ABC News. Additionally, another 20,000 farmers who had not received the USDA loans are set to receive a grant between $3,500 and $6,000. I'm LOA for Afrotech. See you next time.
Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Amanda. If you're new, please subscribe and hit on the like button, and also don't forget to hit on the notification bell as I would be dropping videos every week, right? So the last time I talked about how the black farmers had been subjugated or removed from receiving any form of relief or subsidy from the United States Department of Agriculture. So in these videos lined up for you, you're gonna see how throughout the years black people had been on the disadvantaged side of not receiving any form of subsidies from the United States Department of Agriculture. So guys, stay tuned and watch, but don't forget to hit on the subscribe button. Okay, thank you so much, and I hope you learn one or two things about how black Americans, especially the farmers, have been going through a lot in terms of receiving subsidies and relief from the federal government. And also as at last year, they received about $2 billion. And the funny thing is that the white farmers had to go sue the United States Department of Agriculture because of the $2 billion that the black Americans or black farmers had received. And meanwhile, the white farmers had been enjoying all forms of subsidies from the United States Department of Agriculture. But now all of a sudden, over the years, the black farmers had been fighting, and when they finally won that $2 billion, it was like a hell was loose, literally, right? So stay tuned and watch to the very end. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Why are black Gen Xers so pissed off nowadays?
That's a good question. In 1988, my family and I had a 52-acre farm in Hillsdale County, Michigan. We were the only black people in the county. We raised animals. We had cows and chickens, and, you know, we were living off the grid, basically. And then we had our house fire bombed. We were the only black people in the county. The next day, they said, when they put the fire out, they said, we can't tell if it was arson or not. Only the fire marshal himself can make that determination, and he won't be able to come out till tomorrow. So the next day, my dad went to go get some lumber so he can build up a fence between the tree lines so people can't just drive up on our property. And while he was gone, my mom was waiting on the fire marshal. I was kind of watching her. I was kind of peeking around the corner watching her. She was 5 months pregnant. She was trying to rake in the yard. She had her 12-gauge shotgun with her in case the people with firebombers came back. But she was too small to like hold it. She could just prop herself up. While I'm watching her, 2 Hillsdale County sheriffs pulled up. They grabbed her. They reached around the gate and grabbed the shotgun, put it in the trunk, handcuffed her, and drove off with her. My dad came home with all this lumber. I ran out and told him what I saw. He left. He came back and said, yeah, they arrested your mom for felonious assault. They said she had the pew-pew up on her in the pocket of her shoulder pointing at vehicles as they drove up and down the road. I knew that was a lie. My mom was not like that. They arrested her. They convicted her of felonious assault. She did 133 days in Hillsdale County Jail, felonious assault. When they let her out, as she was 5 months pregnant, we all moved back to Detroit. I got back to Detroit. I absolutely hated it. I had nothing in common with anybody my age in Detroit. I'm just a farm kid. I was naive. And then I got a summer job. I got a job. I got a bike. It was the best feeling of freedom that I had since I was on the farm. I rode it everywhere, and I'm riding at night, and then I got robbed. Great. Now I hate this place all over again. So I got my check I cashed it at the check cashing spot. I'm walking home. I'm paranoid. I had $222.13. I bust my ass and earned this money. I had my head on a swivel. I'm looking one way. I hear, hey, from the other direction. My heart started beating fast. I look, it's 2 cops. Whew. Start making me smile a little bit. Like, man, they don't know how bad they scared me. They walking up to me. I'm getting ready to say something. They gut checked me and doubled me over. And then they grabbed my arms and stood me up while I'm coughing and trying to catch my breath. They handcuffed me. They take everything out of my pockets, my money, my keys, my wallet. They said, what the fuck is you smiling about? I can't even talk. I'm coughing. I'm trying to catch my breath. They put me in the back of the squad car. They called in the dispatch and gave my ID. Dispatch called back all clear. The officer said, you heard her. She said you had a warrant for $222.13. You going to pay it here or you going to pay it at the precinct? I said, I didn't do anything. He said, oh, you didn't hear me. She said, you have a warrant for $222.13. You going to pay it right here or you going to pay it at the precinct? Which one you going to do? And I was mad. I was scared. I was frustrated, and I yelled. I didn't do anything. Officer jumped out the vehicle, got in the back seat with me, pulled out his pew-pew and stuck it in my neck and said, N-word, you know I'll fucking blow your brains out right here? And I was frustrated. I was mad. I was terrified. And I was trying to keep that tear from dropping down my face, but I couldn't. And I hated that tear more than anything else. And I had to watch my breath and say, sir, I didn't do anything. He started laughing, looked at the cop in the front seat and said, well, you heard him. You're going to pay it at the precinct. They took me down there. It was Friday afternoon, about 5:30. They didn't fingerprint me. They didn't take no pictures. They just put me in the cell. Monday morning, they just let me out. I walked home. I got home. My parents were freaking out. They didn't know where I was all weekend. My dad asked me, where were you? I told him. He said, get in the truck. Let's go up there. We went back up to the precinct, and my dad was pissed. My dad is an old civil rights guy. Look at my pictures on my page of him getting arrested for ordering a cheeseburger. He was one of them guys. He said, y'all gonna tell me why y'all had my son in here all weekend? And the officer, I'll never forget it, started smiling and fake typing on the computer. and was like, we got no record of your son being down there. He asked my name or nothing. My dad said, bullshit, you gonna tell me why you had my son down here all weekend? The cop was like, well, we was probably out gangbanging or something, selling drugs or something. My dad was like, my son ain't like that. Motherfucker, you gonna tell me why I had my son? And he stood up and unsnapped his weapon and said, sir, you got a weapon on you? And we left. This is 1988. 1989, I remember watching these stories about kids my age wiling out. I never forget that verbiage in New York and how they were like a pack of animals and the police grabbed them and got confessions out of them. And there was a New York billionaire who had everything he could ever want in the world, was advocating for the death penalty for these kids that were my age. I'm sorry, what were you saying about KKK and never seen them before?
We've lost millions of acres of land. We've lost our way of living, our livelihood. And the COVID relief spending bill that provided the $5 billion in debt relief, $1 billion for outreach and technical assistance, and the other $4 billion for debt relief was a 30-year-old ask from myself and others. I want to let the audience know it was white farmers who got basically all of the debt relief for the 30 years I was asking Congress and the courts to provide debt relief to black farmers. White farmers got debt relief in this country with ease, and black farmers like myself were denied the time and time again to get debt relief in this country. The banks who've been bailed out in this country were one of the very first to speak out against black farmers getting debt relief in this country. So the government has failed us, the banks have failed us, and it's almost like 40 acres and a mule. When we were promised these things. And every time there's a pot of money that's supposed to go to black farmers or black people in this country, we're told we have to wait. Last July at the White House, I was promised a meeting by President Biden that hasn't happened. Since that time, we provided $50 billion in aid to Ukraine and other regions of the country, but we can't find a way to get the debt relief to blacks and other farmers of color in a timely manner.
Well, we've been interviewing our next guest for years now as he has fought tirelessly to help keep black farmers in business across the country, taking his fight to Washington many times over.
We're out here hurting, and I don't understand why more large-scale white farmers, the Midwestern farmers who supported this president hand over foot, are not speaking out against his policies, because I'm sure that they're hurting the same way that I am.
It's very disheartening to listen to those comments from Senator Lindsey Graham, and I've lobbied him in Congress, both as a congressman and as a senator, about the discrimination that many black farmers faced, including myself.
At the turn of the century, there were 1 million black farm families in the United States. We were tilling 20 million acres of land. We're now down to 3.5 million acres of land, and roughly hovering about 50,000 black farmers.
Joining us right now, John Boyd Jr. He is the founder and president of the National Black Farmers Association. You've been very consistent over the years. My look has changed a lot over the years, hair length and all, but great to see you. It was fun to see that kind of montage. You've been with us many times talking about your fight and talking about the plight of black farmers across America. So what are you hearing right now from farmers? What kind of impact has this latest funding freeze had on their farms?
Well, this is a very troubling time in America for farmers. The administration came right in, Frederica, and announced potential tariffs on China and Mexico and Canada. The top 3 commodities that we raise, that I raise, corn, wheat, and soybeans. Mexico buys corn, and China buys 90% of the soybeans. All that type of talk that the president is doing is causing uncertainty for America's farmers. They came right in and froze monies to the MBFA. So they tied all that up. And now farmers are hearing in their local offices that they don't know if they're going to be able, if USDA will be able to extend credit, farm operating loans in this planting season here in about 2 weeks. The only group of farmers that I've heard the president says he supports Whyte farmers from South Africa that he wants to bring here in the homestead and more of a resettlement type program. So, and he says that those farmers have faced discrimination in South Africa, but he won't help America's black farmers right here at home. We never got our land out of federal inventory, Prt2. So right now things are in a tailspin, and this president is at the core of it. Someone mentioned mafia. I'm gonna go a step further. The president is operating almost as he's a dictator, going around Congress. He's going around the courts. The decisions that we see coming out in the courts, to me, haven't been aggressive enough to put this president back in the box so that we can get on with the right type of policies in this country.
So how does that make you and other farmers feel in this country, that you feel like you're not being prioritized? And, what is happening now to your crops? I mean, every season there was something very important that you have to be doing and cultivating on your farms, and without that funding, and with the impact from those tariffs in those countries who are no longer relying on your crops, what are you doing? What are you able to do?
Well, we're going to have to organize, and there are foundations out here that should be supporting programs like the NBFA. We shouldn't let this president scare everybody back in the corner here. He came out this week, Prt2, and said he wasn't going to, he was stopping the scholarship program, one of the programs that I was really involved in, getting up, the 1890 programs. He's pretty much dismantled program at USDA, the Office of Civil Rights. Anything with DEI, they came right in and took all those things out. And it took me 40 years to get some of those things in place, an Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights. I had to go to Congress to get all these things done. And this president came right in and went around all that stuff and pretty much put a halt to 40 years of progress in this country. So the American people are going to have to rise up and speak out against this, and foundations and other companies that believe in righteousness and justice and fairness for all people, they need to pull together and start helping America's farmers. A shame on this president, because he went out and really used the American farmers. Pretty much 99% of white farmers voted for this president. And he came right in and cast a web of uncertainty on their farming operations. And yes, it's going to hurt black farmers, but it's going to hurt them white farmers way further in my take, because they have a lot to lose. And it looks as though this administration wants to gear up more towards agriculture to large-scale companies and take the power away from America's farmers. But I say no to that, and I'm asking America to rise up and speak out and support
See now, I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. We end today's show with the historic $2 billion payout by the U.S. Department of Agriculture to black farmers and other farmers of color who experienced discrimination when applying to the USDA's farm loan programs. The payouts finally came 2 years after Congress funded them through the Inflation Reduction Act in 2022. USDA Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack made the announcement last week.
Now, this financial assistance is not compensation for anyone's loss or the pain endured, but it is an acknowledgement by the department. And our hope is, and the president's hope is, that this financial assistance will help many farmers stay on the farm, contribute to our nation's food supply, and continue to do what they love.
This comes after the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights confirmed as long ago as 1965 that the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, discriminated against black farmers. But little was done to address the problem, and the number of black-run farms dropped 96% in the last century. By 1999, 98% of all agricultural land was owned by white people. For more, we go to Boydton, Virginia. We're joined by John Boyd.
So I've seen the video of that farmer and a couple of other farmers crashing out over the internet talking about how they may lose their farm. It got me to thinking about the black farmers and how they were discriminated against for decades, since 1920, but they know before then, but they can't prove it, that since 1920, the United States government had been discriminating against them. It was so bad that they had to come together and file a class action lawsuit against the United States Department of Agriculture. And the judges agreed with them and awarded them $2.2 billion because they said the U.S. Department of Agriculture was systemically denying them loans, not providing them subsidies, and other programs that offer assistance that they regularly gave to farmers. And when they were awarded their settlement, guess what they were doing? Crying, saying that was reverse racism. They need to get some of that money too. But then you're on the internet crying and think somebody's supposed to give you some sympathy.